He's back, baby! So, there's a brand new F1 movie out, and as an experienced F1 watcher, and as an experienced reviewer, God, I really need to get a life. I figured that there's no one better to pass judgment. I still need to go see the movie. I'll be right back. So, F1 the movie is the brand new film from director Joseph Kosinski, starring Brad Pitt, Damson Idris, and Kerry Condon. It's a story about an old-time professional coming back to the job that he loves after years away and rediscovering his groove and his passion for what he loves to do. How did my channel end up there? So what's the best way for me to explain this movie? Well, probably just to tell you my thoughts and opinions on it all. And this super simple scoring system that I've worked out. Basically, all we're going to do is I've split the film down into 7 possible categories. We've got plot, we've got characters, acting, cinematography, music, accuracy, and recommendation. I will score each of these on a scale of 0 to 1. After this, we will then total up all the scores and then multiply everything by 1.4285714, and from that we get a total finishing score out of 10. Got it? Great. Okay, I realise it's going to be kind of hard to talk about this movie without spoiling the plot and all that a little bit. So if you're worried about spoilers, don't watch any further. But also, if you're that fussed about spoilers, you would have seen the movie by now. Also, you're not going to be missing out too much on spoilers here. The plot is kinda generic. Oh wow, the old timer is brought in with half a season to get a race win. Can he do it? Wow, his different attitude is kind of rubbing people up the wrong way here, but it's getting results. Maybe we should stick with it. Oh no, a massive setback. We followed his ideas too closely and it's blown up in our faces. Whatever will we do now? Phew, we found we struck a fine balance there between his ideas and our own, and we've just about got it harmonious enough. And with just a race to go, can we do it? Look, there's nothing wrong with having a slightly generic plot. It's tried and tested and safe. I understand why they went for it. It's good, it keeps people happy, but it could have been more willing to take risk. Sure, if I end up at a bar, I could order the soda water and be happy, comfortable, sober, have a nice chill time, know that I'll be safe, happy, content. Or I could look at their specials menu and see they've got a mustard mojito and be like, Ayo, sign me up. Does a mustard mojito even exist? It could be terrible. I could get absolutely wasted and black out. I could end up having a panic attack in the smoking area at 2 AM. Or I could have an incredible night out off the start of it. I'm not really sure where I'm going with this point, but the idea is that there are a lot more interesting stories in real life from F1 between rivals and just personal stories in general. There are a lot of interesting ways that people's stories have changed throughout F1 over the years, or from race to race, a lot of interesting problems that could have been thrown up, whereas everything they face in this movie is sort of generic. If you can guess the problems they're gonna have before you go into the movie. Oh wow, the teammates don't get on. Oh wow, we fixed the car. Oh wow, look, they're not happy that we fixed the car. I just think a wider variety of problems could have been thrown up. It doesn't help that the villain is also kind of generic and just bad. They show up in the 3rd act out of pretty much nowhere. It's meant to be like a big twist that, they've been working against the team all along. It's not foreshadowed at all well. They're not really actually effectively fighting the team at all. So when it comes down to the final race, they're just kind of sat on the sideline booing while everyone else is cheering on the team. They're just a bit of nothing, really. Yeah, definitely one of the weaker parts of the movie. With all that said, I'm going to give the plot a 0.6 out of 1. It's safe, generic, good, but I was hoping for a bit more. Let's start with the main man himself, Sonny Hayes, the lone wolf, the very grey lone wolf. Sonny is, at his heart, a true wanderer. He got his career cut short in F1 in the 90s, and from there he's drifted between various jobs as a gambler, as a taxi driver, back to a racing driver. You know, the usual path my career counsellor would have been happy for me to take. Like all the great racing gods, Sonny is looking for the feeling of being the fastest possible, and he's racing in every possible series in order to try and find that spark there somewhere. The film really captures his obsession really well as well. He's argumentative and arrogant when he's out of the car. He's ruthless and reckless when driving the car, but also when he has to question his self-doubt and whether F1 is the sport for him or not. He shows some real thoughtfulness. It's a legitimate question to ask though, because in the movie, Sonny is in his early 50s, and for modern F1 that is wild. We rarely see a driver nowadays get past 40. The oldest currently on the grid is 44 years old, so seeing someone who's over 50, having been away from the sport for a long time, suddenly coming back, it's unprecedented. Like, sure, he's only back for a few races, but like the massive drop in reaction time that he's going to face, the muscle memory from learning all the tracks again and that sort of thing that he's got to catch back up on, like, it's just completely unreasonable to... Sorry, I had to cut that a little bit short, so we'll save the rest of that for the accuracy section. In the meantime, let's move on to our next driver. We go from the senile boomer to the iPad baby. While Sonny's more about speed, Joshua Pierce appears to be more about fame, at least at first. Joshua is new to F1, he's a rookie, so he's very keen to build up his personal image as quickly as possible to try and retain his race seat, retain his spot in the sport. He focuses a lot more on his soft skills, so he's doing a lot more in terms of his marketing and his self-image, how he comes across in the media, that sort of thing, just to be more appealing to getting a new F1 contract, considering the team that they're racing for, Apex, doesn't look super solvent at the moment, and in doing so he's sort of forgetting to focus his skills back onto the track, which is the main thing which is going to attract a sponsor. And we see him learn throughout the movie that actually the distractions off track are what he should be worried about less, and he should be focusing more on what he's doing on track. It's pretty good progression. It's probably the best progression in the movie. We don't know a ton about his backstory though. Like, we know he's got a close relationship with his mum, but we don't know how hard it was to come up through the junior ranks for him to get to F1. We don't know whether he had it easy, whether they struggled financially, how much of it is natural talent, how much he had to build himself. We found out in a throwaway line that his dad died when he was very young, but that's just brought up in one scene and never appears again. Yeah, getting to the rest of the characters, they're also a bit undeveloped. We've got Kate, the lead designer, the first woman lead designer in F1. Wow, they can do so much with that. She's the love interest. That's basically all she is in the movie, unfortunately. We get hints of an interesting character. We know that she moved to F1, had to give up her previous relationship. She faced some misogyny apparently when she started, but we don't actually get to see any of it. We don't get to see her overcome any misogyny that she faced. We don't get to see her rise and get more respect as her career progresses. We don't get to see like a vindicating moment for her really, where she fights off the people who says that she couldn't do it. The movie loves the concept of feminism, but it doesn't actually like to show it in action. Ruben owns the F1 team. He used to be a driver in F1. We don't get to see any of the progression between the two. We don't know how he got into it at all. We don't know where all his money came from and why he decided to continue in F1 and become a team boss, which is a pretty big step. We know that he had a pretty close relationship with Sonny while they were racing, but we don't get to hear any stories of how it was. We don't get to know really how close they got. We just know that they raced together at the same time. The team principal, already have forgotten his name. But he's meant to be like a multiple constructors champion. He's won a bunch of them in the past and that sort of thing. And he's basically nothing in the movie. Like, I would love to see a leadership style. I'd love to see how someone runs the day-to-day operations of an F1 team. It's a great insight into how that could be done and shown. It's something that's not really seen very much, but there's just nothing in it. And then we've got all the mechanics, the PR team, all the engineers who are just also kind of there, but they're just there for quips more than anything else. Like, if you blink, you absolutely miss what they're called, so like you can really just look at their faces and go, oh, it's that guy, wow. I get that they're trying to show all the different roles in F1 team, and it's hard to capture all of them and give them all development in one movie, but they're all pretty severely underbaked. I was expecting a bit more. I'm going to give it a 0.4 out of 1. Considering the characters that they were given in this movie, the acting is actually really good. Like, they've got a really good selection of like familiar names like Javier Bardem and Brad Pitt that bring a lot of familiar faces. They've got a couple of new younger actors. It's just like a really good mix, and none of them are phoning it in at all. You know, when the characters are like distressed and upset, especially at a big crash that happens partway through the movie, like it's all very believable. Like, the frustration is, I think, considering the situation, misplaced. Like, it's all very believable, the distress and the anguish that you see a lot of the characters going through, and also when like the team are all celebrating the highs and that sort of thing. Like, it's a great feeling. You get caught up in the emotion of it all. It's really good. The movie does run into a bit of a problem with some of the dialogue and that sort of thing. It's, for lack of a better word at times, a bit cringe. If any of you have watched Drive to Survive, the F1 documentary series on Netflix, you'll understand what I mean when I say that there are a lot of like Will Buxtonisms, which, for those who don't know, is just like, it's a bunch of like really obvious corny lines that are sort of dressed up to sound more intense than they actually are. You know, it's something obvious like, we've got one more chance to win a race, and that means we need to cross the line first. You know, it's, when you strip it back, extremely obvious, but when it's hammed up with all the acting and the music, then it suddenly sounds a lot more dramatic. You know, we've got one more chance to win a race. And that means we need to cross the line first. But yeah, it is a little bit tacky. As I said earlier, it depends if you're more into the soda water or the mustard mojito. If you're happy with a bit of generic dialogue in your movies, then it's not going to worry you at all. But otherwise, it may be a bit frustrating from time to time hearing the same sorts of obvious phrases said over and over again. If you're more into F1, it's going to be even more obvious. Like, one word that I can't stand to hear anymore, especially after this movie, is combat. In my mind, like, combat is just dudes with heavy plate armor smashing each other with maces. It's cannon drawing fire and smoke across the battlefield. It's a masked duel and sunset with your arch nemesis with romantic undertones, which, don't get me wrong, some of the F1 community would like that to be the case. Combat is not the right word for what's happening on track in F1. What was I on about again? Acting, right, yeah. Like a 0.7 out of 1, it's pretty good, just a bit cringe at times, but not really the actor's fault. This is where the director, Joseph Kosinski, can really shine. When I first heard that he was connected to the movie at all, I knew he'd probably be in safe hands. He most recently directed Top Gun Maverick, and by far one of the best bits about that is the action scenes. He put a real emphasis on like trying to get you inside the cockpit during the dogfights, just so you get a real sense of the action, a sense of the speed and the danger that you're exposed to. And he's carried a lot of his filming techniques from that across, plus some new innovations as well to try and help put you into the cockpit of the F1 car. It definitely worked in this movie. By far the best bit of the movie is the racing scenes. They got to film a lot on location during extra practice sessions and that sort of thing. During Grand Prix weekends, they got pretty much unprecedented access to anywhere they wanted to go in the paddock, on the track. They brought in a couple of like brand new camera innovations for the F1 cars and that sort of thing to try and capture all the views, and it really pays off. The movie does really well at capturing the intensity of wheel-to-wheel combat, capturing the speed that the drivers experience during an F1 race. It's one of the best representations of racing that I've seen, especially in live action format, in pretty much any movie. The visual effects in this movie are like really good too. When there's crashes, they're big and scary. You fear for the drivers. You get a real sense of the scale of the crashes that are happening, how these cars are racing at 200 miles an hour and suddenly going to zero. but they're not so big they're over the top. They're all based on crashes that have happened previously in the past. So although they're from different angles that we may not have seen before, they're all still realistic and grounded. They also do really good work editing in real F1 pictures from races that have happened over the last few seasons. They take great care in editing Apex cars into footage, sometimes replacing other cars on track for some overtakes and that sort of thing, and wheel-to-wheel action. They just do a really good job. To the blind eye, like, you couldn't even notice that these shots came from a live broadcast if you hadn't seen the races before. There's definitely no complaints from me on the cinematography side, so I'm going to give it a 1 out of 1. I'm not a film student, so maybe there's something you could say it could be done better, but from my point of view, it's incredibly visually interesting and not over the top, which is all I want. It's a 1 out of 1. The soundtrack to this movie can be split into 2 parts. You've got the score and you've got the original music. They may sound the same, they're completely different. What's the difference? I did GCSE music 10 years ago. We'll start with the score, and what I really need to say is it's done by Hans Zimmer, so therefore it's pretty great. There's a reason that he's known as one of the best film composers currently working. When it's in the background of a scene, it's not too overpowering, but it just sort of opens the door to help you feel the emotion of a scene. Like, it's subtle, but it's distinct enough that you hear like the main bass groove that he's got working for this movie, and it works really well. Is it his best work? No. I prefer his score for the movie Rush personally. Maybe I just need more time for this to grow on me. But also that's like looking at a Van Gogh painting and going, oh, it's not Starry Night, it's worthless. It's still fantastic. The original music is really good as well. It comes from a bunch of different people who are currently in the Hot 100. All the artists are really good. It's got more of a focus on like pop and hip hop and that sort of thing. So at times it does feel a bit samey with some of the music. There's not much of a spread of genre across it. Part of me thinks maybe the movie would do better from that, because I'm worried that in a few years, maybe it will feel like the soundtrack for this movie is a bit dated. I forgot to put Booker in that. I get though that this is trying to help the movie appeal to a bigger audience. And maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe the music will hold the test of time and be a really good indicator of the snapshot of F1 in the current era that it's being filmed for. So it'll be a 0.9 out of 1. If it weren't for 2 things. First of all, there's no reference to the F1 theme, which I think is a bit of a shame. The F1 theme is really good in my opinion. It's great at hyping people up at the start of the race. It's a great banger. It's relatively recently made, and I'm surprised that F1 weren't more keen to get this put into the movie. It's a great soundtrack that can be associated with F1. I get that it's kind of hard to work it in if Hans Zimmer already had an idea for the score, that it's maybe hard to work in there. Second of all, there's no The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, which was before the F1 theme, the sort of unofficial F1 theme, and that's a stupid oversight. That song fucking rules. They know that it's loved by a lot of fans. They teased it with us in all the advertising for the movie, and then it just doesn't show up even in the end credits for the movie. And for edging us with Fleetwood Mac, what a sentence. But yeah, for edging us with Fleetwood Mac is now a 0.8 out of 1 instead of 0.9. This is going to be kind of hard to judge. On the one hand, this movie is incredibly dedicated to getting stuff right. They got unprecedented access to the paddock and the races, and you can really tell that in all the footage. The film also does a great job at recognising that F1 is a more engineering-based series, unlike spec series where all the cars are the same and it's the drivers that make the impact. The movie doesn't go down the same route of going, oh wow, the drivers are the heroes in every way. It recognises that engineering is a big part of F1, and the main way for the car to get quicker is to upgrade the car itself rather than upgrade the driver. And it does a really good job at visually representing how the car evolves and changes, like the big upgrades that you can see on the car, nice and visually distinct, so even if you don't know F1, you understand roughly what's changed about it. Obviously, real races on the F1 calendar, not necessarily in the right order, but they're all there. All the crashes are based on real life crashes. The FIA in this movie are just as incompetent as in real life. However, at the same time, there are just like a couple of things which, if you're really invested in F1 as a full-time hardcore fan, that you are going to notice as being dumbed down for the movie or suspiciously omitted from the movie, possibly for pacing or other reasons. For example, there's no qualifying mentioned at all in the movie. Like it's mentioned, I think, once or twice that there is a qualifying session. It's mentioned a lot that the Apex cars always get penalised and put to the back of the grid, which is also a bit of a weird thing, but again, incompetent FIA absolutely nailing their rendition 100%. In F1, it's very hard to overtake at the moment, and unfortunately that means that qualifying has a big impact on how a driver's race will unfold. Depending on where they're starting, their prospects for the race can change massively. It's not impossible to drive through a whole field like they do in a couple of the races, but it's much harder to do, and qualifying is a big part of F1 at the moment, and it's just not really referenced at all. Although there's the emphasis on upgrades on the car and that sort of thing, the massive swing in performance from perceptibly just a single upgrade is like a massive swing, which seems like a slightly strange factor. The garages are also too clean. I get at the start of a weekend, F1 garages look like they're shiny new spaceships from the future in how some of them are set up, but it doesn't really look lived in at all. Kind of like the characters that are a bit underdeveloped. It doesn't look like the garage has been lived in. A big one also in my mind is just that there's like no mention of the championship at all. It's mentioned that Apex score points for the first time in the season, but beyond that it doesn't show the rivalry in either the drivers or the constructors championships in terms of them competing with other teams and drivers for points, which is a big oversight. F1 is a series of races with all the results mattering, and your position in the championship is massively important. It affects the prize money you get, it affects the amount of R&D you can do for the next season. It has a massive influence over contracts and that sort of thing, and sponsorship targets. I understand that possibly they didn't want to upset other teams and drivers and not establish possible rivals in the movie, with then that bleeding over into a negative outlook on the teams in real life. But Alpine doesn't have many fans anyway. I'm sure like they wouldn't have minded being thrown a bit more into the movie if they had to be the villain to do so. I know I could go on for a long time about all the inaccuracies about Sonny's age, Pierce's over-reliance on the media and that sort of thing, but also they've got to put a limit to reality somewhere and accept where the movie has to step in and make things easier, especially if they're using this as an avenue to get more fans in. The broad strokes they get absolutely dead on. So it's still an incredibly accurate portrayal. Sure, some of the details are missing for a die-hard F1 fan, but the details are generally overlookable, if that's a word, enough for them to not completely take them out of the movie. I was expecting a little bit more, but generally I can't complain. I'll give it a 0.7 out of 1, I think. When I think of this movie, I think of a very obvious comparison in my mind to another movie that's related to F1, Grand Prix. Now, for those of you who aren't die-hard obsessives about F1, let me explain it for you. Released in 1966, the movie follows 4 main protagonists and their fight for the World Championship in the 1966 F1 season. It shows them struggling with arrogance, cynicism, reputation, and skill issue. It's at times a brutal movie showing the real risk that the drivers faced racing at that time. It shows the toll that that took on relationships that they had with their partners and their family during that time. The sort of mental fortitude and difference in opinion that you don't see in F1 nowadays. In my mind, I quite like the movie. Would I generally recommend it? There are a lot more films that I would recommend first. If you want a movie that's about teaching you about finding a healthy balance between chasing your dreams and taking care of your personal well-being and your life, Cars is a better movie. If you want a movie about chasing an elusive win and the effort it goes into designing a new car and how different teams will fight each other both on and off track, Ford versus Ferrari is a better movie. If you want a movie about F1 and about how drivers are willing to put everything on the line for a win, if you want a movie about how the championship swings to and fro in terms of initiative and the stress and strain that puts on a driver, Rush is a better movie. If you want a sports movie starring Brad Pitt and a team of underdogs about battling the norm in their series and feeling vindicated in the way that they approach it in the end, finally having it all pay off for them, then Moneyball is a better movie. And it's also the second movie in history to make me interested in baseball at all. Grand Prix, however, is still considered a cult classic among circles of F1 fans though, because it is a gorgeous snapshot of F1 in the 60s. It has unparalleled footage and audio of the cars that were racing during that time period. It's got an insane amount of driver cameos from all of the big names who went on to become, or were at the time, F1 legends. It won awards for editing and sound, and it was a pioneer at the time in filmmaking, absolutely smashing all the norms known at the time for producing film. They went so far as actually entering a car into the 1966 Belgian Grand Prix and just strapping a film camera to the front of it. If you're interested in learning about the old, early days of F1, it's absolutely a must-watch. And bringing it back to F1 the movie, I feel the same way about how it represents modern F1. I can absolutely see this similar to Grand Prix, winning a few awards, doing pretty well for its time at the box office, and going on to become, in a few years, a cult classic. Probably not one that's enjoyed massively by wide audiences, but for F1 fans, pretty enjoyable. If you're a fan of modern F1, I think that you should go and see this movie. If you want to see the best capturing of live action racing that there is at the moment, this movie is where you will go and see it. If you want to see what all the hype about racing is about, if you've been interested by F1 or just racing in general, and you want to get a bit of a feel for what it's like, then you should check this movie out. It's a pretty good introduction. And if that doesn't sound interesting to you, if you think you're going to be relying more on the subplots and the interesting characters to keep you intrigued in the story as it goes along, then yeah, this movie's not going to do it for you. I don't blame you giving it a pass, but I think if you've got some interest, while it's new and fresh and as exciting as it's going to be with all of its new innovations, now is the time to go see it. I'm going to give it a 0.6 out of 1. And now that brings us to the end of the review. We're finally done. I've done all the categories, so now it's time for us to total it up. Cool, yeah, that gives us a total of... Cool, yeah, this is... 4.8! I bet that looked good in the edit. No. And now we just need to times it by... Yeah, I'm not doing that in my head. So we have a final score of 6.8. 5. 7. 1. 4. 2. 8.